Remember that time you found a puzzle in the mail, and if you found the solution, you would proceed to spend the next 2 years of your life getting experimented on in an underground facility? No, you don't remember that? Well, it happened in this show. I was born a hater. Then I discovered television. Dark reviews. We're going to be doing a deep dive into Severance, Season 2. But before we do that, my name is Hayley Dark, and let's quickly go over where Season 1 left us. Our innies, Mark, Hayley and Irving, find their way outside of the severed floor with the help of Dylan, who triggers a protocol called the Overtime Contingency. Then, Irving gets his heart broken. Hayley tells a room full of people that she's being tortured on the severed floor.
Listen, we're not happy. We're miserable.
And Mark tells people that his Audi's wife is still alive.
She's alive!
There's a total of 10 episodes for us to enjoy this season. The season opens with 2 minutes of Mark running through a maze of hallways trying to find his Audi's wife, Gemma. But when he gets to wellness, it seems that the doors are gone, and they're not just gone, they're like completely replaced with walls, which is kind of funny. He goes to MDR and he finds his team there. His new team.
Who are you people?
I'm Mark W.
Mark gets a hold of some balloons, and Mr. Milchick says that what you all did 5 months ago was one of the most painful moments in this company's history. So it's just been 5 months since the season 1 finale. Something led Mark to come back though. Maybe he wants his innie to find his wife Gemma somewhere on this floor. Here we also meet Miss Huang, and she's a child. What is a child doing on the severed floor? We learn that Mrs. Cobell is no longer with this company. It seems that her being fired last season was permanent. The team garners international fame for their actions and now is the face
of severance reform.
Mrs. Cobell has become the scapegoat and is blamed for all the bad conditions on the severed floor.
For the past 5 months, we've been asking how a sadist like Harmony Cobell could take fertile root in Lumen soil, and had plans to pursue both you and your Audi in what might be termed a throuple.
As fun as this might have been, Mark wants to know where his friends are. And Mr. Milchick says that he tried for weeks to get them back, but the reforms just weren't enough. They don't want to come back. Mark is the only one. This makes Mark angry and he leaves his balloons.
So the others, they refused.
He talks with his new team for a bit and then they play the team bonding game again.
How's the sky?
I don't know.
Oh no, it's the ball game.
Mark W. asks the important questions like, why is she a child?
Because of when I was born.
Mark leaves at the end of the day, and when he comes back, the new team is still there. These refiners also apparently have never hit quota before, so they're not even good refiners. Mark, at the end of this day, leaves a note in the jacket of Mark W, and it's found.
If you must continue to send me here, please consider strapping a bomb to me so that I may explode both Milkshake.
Mark just wants his old team back, his friends. Where are they, Mr. Milkshake? Using a clever ruse, Mark distracts the team and he runs to Mrs. Cobell's office, which is now Mr. Milkshake's office. Here, he connects the speaker and he begs the board to see his old team again. Mark is told to leave. Is he getting fired? No, he comes back the next day, and so does Dylan and so does Irving.
Dude, what's wrong? You poor up there?
Hayley is also back, begging the board worked, and now everyone's back together again. A happy family.
Who was me?
They weren't like specific counterparts.
Okay, well, I don't think you should feel bad at all.
Feel bad?
Yeah, for ending their lives.
That's actually a good point. Mark did just kind of kill these people, but who cares? We just want our beloved characters back. They go into the break room, and it looks pretty. They've redecorated. Mr. Milchick shows them a video and says that this video will be shown to every innie that enters this building.
I'm the Lumen Administrative Building, and you're sitting in me right now.
Fun fact, Obama was almost the voice of the Lumen building, but the casting fell through.
Love for my workers, both unsevered and severed. For NDR workers, dissatisfied with their severed lives, the Macrodat Uprising.
Burn this place to the ground.
Thank Kier for them.
Claymation, nice! So it seems that Lumen has made some reforms, including less cameras and more privacy. Or so they say. The team discuss what happened on the outside world, except Hayley lies for some reason. She says that she was in a boring apartment and that she spoke to a gardener about what happened on the 7th floor, and this is not true.
A gardener?
Yeah.
A night gardener?
Maybe she is worried that as an Egan she will lose the trust of her fellow MDR teammates. Irving keeps to himself and the team splits in two. Irving tells Dylan that he went to see Bert on the outside, but Bert is married. He also tells Dylan about the black hallway with the downwards elevator.
I want it to be over. You're a good friend, Dylan.
We get a cool friendship moment between Dylan and Irving, and then Hayley tells Mark that she will help him find his Audi's wife, Gemma. Mr. Milchick brings Dylan into his office and then into some sort of closet storage space which we've never seen before. He shows Dylan the blueprints of the Audi family visitation suite. He asks Dylan to keep quiet about it, and Dylan will be able to get visitation here from his Audi's wife, who is named Gretchen. He gets back to MDR and it looks like the team is here to stay. Two things are worth noting this episode. First, it seems like we got a budget increase. I don't have data to back this up, but from some of the scenes I just get vibes. Secondly, at the end of the episode, Mark is working on a file called Cold Harbor. This is also the name of the season finale, so this file is important. Maybe we'll even learn what the file names and the numbers all mean. We also see Gemma's face at the end. So Cold Harbor could be related to Gemma somehow. The file is also on 68%, which is a little bit confusing because before the overtime contingency, they were all done with their files, but now Mark has only been working for 3 days and somehow he's at 68%. That's quick even for Mark. And fun fact, apparently the reason that Mark has this headpiece on his desk is because he once finished a file named Allentown in a single day and nobody knows how. In the second episode, we switch back to Audi Mark just after this innie yelled that his wife is alive. Devon then hugs him, which just reinforces that Devon is the best character outside of the 7th floor.
Are you okay?
Helena has a nice talk with her father.
Fetid moppet.
Helena sends Mr. Milchick to talk to the Audis to find out who they talked to and what they said to them. Then she has a meeting with Mrs. Cobell, who demands an apology for being fired. She gets the apology and even they attempt to promote her. But it's to some nonsense position and she doesn't want it. She wants to be running the 7th floor with her favorite innies.
You don't value me. You fear me.
After this meeting, Helena records a fake apology for the media, saying that she was drunk and on some medication. All footage of the gala had been confiscated, so the media only knows about what Innie Hayley said by word of mouth. Mr. Milchick confronts Audi Irving and he says that nothing happened today, so Mr. Milchick fires him on the spot.
You're firing me?
Then Mr. Milchick goes to Dylan and fires Dylan too, saying that Dylan was the aggressor in a violent altercation. He's rewriting history, and now poor Dylan has to explain to his wife and children that he lost his job. The intro plays, it's new and it has even more balloons, baby gears and coats this time. As before, it's visually stunning and mysterious, so good job, writers. Audi Mark talks to Devon and Rickon about the situation and he doesn't think that his wife Gemma is actually alive because he identified her body. Then Mr. Milchick shows up.
I imagine you have a few questions.
Oh, you could say that.
Any Mark was here, in this house. What happened tonight is what we call the overtime contingency.
Yeah, you never told me about this.
OTC disclosure can be found in your start paperwork.
You gotta read the fine print, Mark. That's how they get you. Devon gets smug with Mr. Milchick.
What did he say to you?
If I tell you, are you going to punish him for it?
They rightfully withhold a bunch of information from Mr. Milchick. The next day, Devon, the queen that she is, tries to convince Mark not to quit his job.
Yeah, but she was my wife.
I know, but you're not the only one her death affected.
Later, Mr. Milchick gives Audi Mark a 20% raise and he accepts, so Mark goes into work the next day. It seems like only 2 days have passed since the season 1 finale and not 5 months. And also, they are certainly not the face of Severance reform, so it seems Mr. Milchick just lied to the innies again. This company is just as corrupt as 2 days ago. Nothing's changed. They say that they want Mark to complete the Cold Harbor file, and this file seems to be their end goal. At the end of the episode, Audi Mark runs into Mrs. Cobell at his house and he tries to question her about Gemma, but she drives off. From her face though, he can tell that more is going on down on the 7th floor than he thought. The most important thing from this episode is that Irving calls someone and he tells them, I want you to know my innie got the message. Who could he be talking to? We don't know. I doubt it's Dr. Agabi because Petey was the first person she reintegrated, so it must be someone else. Also in this episode, Helena discovers a new kink as she rewatches the security footage of her innie kissing innie Mark at the end of episode 8 of season 1. We also see Audi Dillon have a job interview at a door making company, but he gets discriminated against for being severed, because remember, severance is a controversial procedure.
I was a severed employee, so. We need a certain kind of person here, Mr. George, not a certain kind of two people.
In the 3rd episode, Audi Mark runs into work with a timer watch and he seems to be timing how long it takes to get from his car to the elevator. Inside, innie Mark is copying sketches of Gemma and it says missing.
Just show them the sketch.
They want to bring these sketches to other departments. Mark and Hayley will go to Baby Coats, but they don't really know how to act normal around each other after they previously kissed. Irving tells Dylan that he recreated the black hallway painting with the elevator and he wants his best friend Dylan to come help find it. But Dylan says no. Bestie, what are you doing? Well, Dylan is thinking about visiting his Audi's wife in a new family visitation suite, and he doesn't want to upset Mr. Milchick and potentially lose his new perk. But that's not what he tells Irving, so Irving will go to O&D alone. Mr. Milchick arrives on the floor and he runs into the balloons that Mark left behind. Natalie and the board are waiting in Mr. Milchick's office and they have a gift for him to celebrate his recent promotion. It's a bunch of paintings about the founder Keir, but they're made to look like Mr. Milchick. That's certainly something, Lumen. Racism. Mark and Hayley go to Baby Goats and nobody's there, not even any goats. They find a small hole, they crawl through it and they get to Mammalians Nurturable.
Oh my god.
They run into Gwendolyn Christie dressed as a goat hoarder. They try to talk to her, but she seems a bit wary of MDR, and Mark gets a little bit aggressive, so she calls in all the goat people. They try to reason with them for a little bit and show them the drawing of Mrs. Casey, but it seems like they don't know anything. And luckily for Mark, they're not going to tell Mr. Milchick about this visit. But before MDR gets to leave, they have to show their belly buttons to the goat people. Because the goat people also believe that MDR has pouches, just like O&D once believed. Irving talks to Felicia at O&D and he says, please like and subscribe, it would mean so much to me.
I only ever saw him scared of one thing. He spent 2 hours on his hair the first time he went to visit you.
We learn that the hall with the downward elevator is called the Export Hall. This is where O&D used to deliver the things that they printed to, like snow globes, and now those things get collected by someone instead. Dylan is taken by Miss Huang to the family visitation suite, which is located at the old security office.
You really don't know me at all?
No. He dumb?
No.
She shows him some pictures of their children, and at the end, she hugs him and tells him that she loves him. And then he tells her that he's gonna make them proud. It's so sweet. Wiccan, Mark's brother-in-law, has a conversation with Natalie about making a propaganda book for the innies. Mrs. Cobell meets with Helena and she's asking for a job of floor manager back.
Marcus is so close to completing Cold Harbor.
She wants Mr. Milchick fired. Helena is being mean to her and tries to lure her into the building, but Mrs. Cobell doesn't trust her and so she drives off. During this conversation, Helena says to Mrs. Cobell, you've overestimated your contributions and underestimated your blessings. Well, in episode 8, we learned just how much Mrs. Cobell actually contributed to Lumen, and let me tell you, she did not overestimate her contributions, okay? Audi Mark and his sister Devon cook up a plan to burn an image into his retina for 2 minutes and 18 seconds in an attempt to get a message to his innie. They want to ask, who is alive? Mark tries it for a bit and he doesn't get very far, and Dr. Ragabi shows up and she tells him it can't work because during the switch between Audi and Innie, the pupils dilate so you can't send any messages through.
And how was the Innie gonna send you a message back?
That's his problem. I don't know.
She tells Mark that Gemma is alive and that reintegration is the only way to get her back, so Mark agrees and they go to his basement to attempt reintegration. How does it work? Well, basically, 2 brainwaves become 1 brainwave through wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey or something.
Hey there. You on the table? I wonder if you'd mind taking a brief survey. 5 questions.
So he's reintegrated now? No. Sadly, they're going to drag this reintegration plot along for the rest of the season. Something fun to note this episode is that the team talks about the video from the break room and the video says Lumen is listening. But the team takes it as a double meaning, meaning Lumen is listening in on their conversations. And we know Lumen likes doing double meaning stuff, so it could be true.
Lumen is listening, remember?
I thought that meant they were listening to our conversations.
Yeah, he's right, Mark. I did get the hint of a double meaning.
Also, some of the goat people are actually dressed like goats and it's not explained why. Is this just how goat hoarding works? In episode 4, Innie Irving awakens outside and he's standing on a bunch of ice. So Irving's Audi walks onto the ice just so that his Innie could awaken on the ice. I mean, that's a bit extra, but I respect it. The rest of MDR is here too, but why are they outside? Well, at least they can enjoy the sky and some snow. They find a television with Mr. Milchick on it and he explains what's happening.
Outdoor retreat and team building occurrence. See the outside world.
It's a little bit like a group activity, but in the freezing cold and with some treasure hunting vibes. They follow creepy replica puppets of the 4 members of MDR towards the Scissor Cave, and this is the cave where Kier Egan first tamed the 4 Tempers. We learn here that Kier had a twin named Deirdre.
So, better walk in the brother's footsteps.
Irving tells Mark that he doesn't trust Hayley because of the Night Gardener comment, and so Irving thinks that Hayley is lying about what she saw on the outside. They come across a dead seal and Irving gets a bit angry because the team just willingly does whatever they're told and he doesn't like it. They then come across a waterfall and Mr. Milkshake shows up in a fashionable winter coat and he delivers the best line of the season.
This is the tallest waterfall on the planet. You have followed the path of Kier.
This is the largest map on the planet. I can only imagine how much fun Mr. Milkshake has making up random lies and telling them to the Innies.
We're starving, Mr. Milchick. I thought the waterfall's grandeur would satiate you.
They get to hold some torches and it's a really cool experience for the Innies. In a tent, Irving questions Hayley about what she saw on the outside, but Hayley doesn't tell. Then, Miss Huang plays this fun instrument. Mr. Milkshake tells us a fun horror story about how Deirdre died and about how Kier Egan met the first Temper. Whoa! Hayley laughs because the story is just ridiculous and it's the dumbest thing that she's ever heard. In response though, Mr. Milkshake burns all the marshmallows. What a cruel thing to do.
Throw them in the fire. Marshmallows are for team players, Dylan.
Irving questions Hayley again, but Hayley is mean in response and so Irving leaves. Then Mark and Hayley go into the same tent and they sleep together. Did they forget Miss Huang is in the tent next door? These two have been making Google eyes at each other the entire episode, so it was only a matter of time before this happened. Irving sleeps outside and he has a dream about the MDR workstation, but the Temper Woe is sitting on Hayley's desk. This makes Irving realize that Hayley cannot be trusted and why. Irving then confronts Hayley in the morning.
What you said to me last night, it was cruel. Hayley was never cruel.
No, Irving!
Mr. Milchick!
Help!
He's an outie! Irving! You stop now!
She's not Hayley! She's an Egan! God damn it, stop doing!
Remove the Glasgow block now.
It was Helena all along. She had been pretending to be Hayley for 4 entire episodes. Who could have seen this coming? Okay, well, a lot of people saw this coming, including me. When Hayley lied about what she saw on the outside, it was just suspicious. So people thought it was Helena instead. And it was never confirmed. She acted like Hayley pretty well, but Now we know, and it's quite vindicating to know that it was actually Helena. And what a way to give us this reveal too. I mean, Irving practically drowning Helena to force Mr. Milkshake to turn the switch and give our Hayley back? Cinema.
You have threatened collegial murder in the pond of Woe's Hollow.
Irving gets fired for attempted murder because, well, he did kind of do that.
It will be as if you, Irving B., never even existed.
This was the best episode of the season, in my opinion. The scenery was great, Mr. Milkshake's outfit was great, and seeing Irving figure it out and then take such drastic action was also great. Some fun things to note this episode is that Irving says this.
Using your pupils to make love to her while your outie's wife rots away somewhere.
Hey! He's right, Mark. Keep your eyes on the ball. Gemma is suffering. Also, when Helena is screaming for help, Mr. Milkshake runs significantly faster than Mark does. We finally got Innie Hayley back. Let's ask her what her perspective was on the last few episodes.
We're not happy. We're miserable.
We're prisoners!
I'm so sorry, Hayley.
Yeah, that must have been pretty confusing. You've missed a lot, Hayley. And also, Helena almost dies in episode 4 of both seasons, so there's a little bit of a parallel there. The episode starts with the exports man taking a new print from O&D to the exports hall. Audi Mark talks to Dr. Wakabi about not remembering anything else, and she says, maybe your Innie has. Well, he hasn't, not really. Cold Horror stays at 81%, and so the board is forcing Helena to go back into the severed floor. She doesn't want to, and she says this.
They're fucking animals.
And they're kind of proving her right. I mean, 2 out of the 4 MDR members have tried to murder her.
And the work is mysterious and important.
The team drills into Mr. Milkshake about what happened last episode, and he says Irving is not coming back. So our Irving is dead. Then he takes the team to MDR and the workstation has changed. It's now a tri-station. And also, he has removed Irving from the pictures of all their desks. Mark and Hayley have a conversation in the bathroom, and she is understandably upset that people couldn't recognize that Helena was impersonating her. Then, in the break room, a short funeral commences for Irving, and Dylan says some kind words.
May I say a question? You shouldn't let them have a funeral.
That wasn't a question.
He was awesome and I miss him.
There's a melon version of Irving's head, and Mr. Milkshake punishes Mrs. Huang by not allowing her to play on the fun instrument.
Miss Wong.
She left it behind. Quick team, now's the chance to play the fun instrument. Mark and Hayley go into the hallway and they have a short little argument. Dylan finds instructions left by Irving on how to find the black hallway and the downward elevator. Mr. Milkshake has his first performance review as floor manager, and they do not like that he uses so many big words. But they're just wrong, because the big words are why we love Mr. Milkshake. They also don't like how he puts the paperclip on his reports, and most importantly, they really don't like how he made the kindness reforms and how he gave the Innies an Ordbo, which resulted in the expulsion of 1 employee and also in Helena getting exposed.
Mark Scout's completion of Cold Harbor will be remembered as one of the greatest moments.
Irving, who is now fired, notices that Bert is following him and he confronts him. Bert says that Bert's Innie had a romantic entanglement with one of his co-workers, and since Irving showed up in the season finale and knocked on his door, Bert figured, well, the romantic entanglement must have been with Irving's Innie. So because of this, Bert invites Irving to a dinner with his husband. Audi Mark has a flashback to wellness and Mrs. Casey. The episode ends here, so is he reintegrated yet? No. Noteworthy this episode is that Rickon is slowly becoming a sellout, and our Queen Devon calls him out on it. That's right.
Lumen hurts people, you know that. And if you want to water down your work so they can use it for their fucking propaganda, then you're hurting people too.
And during the performance review with Mr. Milkshake, they put it in a way where it seems like the kindness reforms and the Ordbo were all Mr. Milkshake's idea. So he truly did just want the Innies to have a better experience on the inside. At least better than with Harmony Cobell. So he is a good person, I guess. In the 6th episode, Dylan tells Mark and Hayley about the downward elevator and that might be where Mrs. Casey is being held. Mark then has a reintegration flashback to Audi Mark's apartment and his goldfish. Then Mark and Hayley talk in the bedroom, which seems to be their favorite place to talk, and Mark tells her that they shared vessels.
Hayley, we shared vessels.
Okay.
He keeps telling her that he thought it was her and not Helena, but she needs some time to process, okay, Mark? Mr. Milchick leaves Miss Huang in charge of the 7th floor today so that he can work on his performance review issues. She does not, however, get to sit at his desk. Dylan and his Audi's wife Gretchen spend some more time together at family visitation. She tells him that his Audi did scuba diving lessons, woodworking, and even made beer in his garage. So he has tried a lot of things, and she thinks that maybe he's just not happy out there. But then Dylan tells her that that's not possible because as long as he's with her, he has to be happy, right? And at the end, she hugs him and then she kisses him. Dylan's just having the time of his life right now. Hayley and Mark meet again, this time not in the bedroom, and she tells Mark that she wants to do it.
What sucks is that she got to have that and I didn't.
They go to the purple workspace room that is not on the map, and I'm not going to put it on the map. And they pretend they're in a tent like when he was with Helena, and they get intimate. One has to wonder, with all these innies getting it on, where exactly is Miss Huang? Because she's in charge of the floor today, and none of the innies are refining macro data. I saw a theory online that every morning Mr. Milchick stands in front of the mirror and commands his mustache to grow. I thought it was just a funny joke, but then this episode aired.
Grow, 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 grow.
Would you like me to put petroleum jelly in your nostrils?
Mark has a nosebleed and they go to Miss Huang for help. Audi Mark remembers fragments of the scene during his reintegration with Dr. Agabi. Audi Irving has a nice dinner with Bert and his husband Fields.
Who the hell are you?
We learn that the Whole Mind Collective, who is protesting Severance, remember, threw a bunch of red paint on Bert a couple times on his way to Lumen. Bert says that he thinks he will not go to heaven because he was a little bit of a scoundrel when he was young. And so he severed himself so that his innie, who is a new whole person, might go to heaven with his husband, and so his husband will not be alone up there. That's kind of sweet.
But Jesus Christ?
Fields says that Bert worked for Lumen 20 years ago. Bert corrects him and says, no, it was only 10 years ago. But it's kind of sus, because the first severed office only opened 12 years ago. So was Bert severed before then, or was he just a normal employee? Either way, kind of sus. Audi Mark goes into a restaurant and eats a fortune cookie, but the writers don't show us what his fortune is. That's a television crime right there. Then Helena Egan shows up, sits at his table and flirts with him a little bit. Remember, she slept with his innie, but he doesn't know that. She taunts his dead wife a little bit, and so he leaves and goes home to do reintegration with Dr. Agabi. We find out that Mark has a gigantic hole in his head, and do all the innies have this? I mean, how do they shower? The procedure with Dr. Agabi seems to be a little bit of a success because he has a flashback to sleeping with Hayley, who he recognizes as the lady who just accosted him in a restaurant and is also his boss. Devon knocks on the door and Mark lets her in. He doesn't want to tell her though that he is reintegrating, but soon enough he falls to the floor and Dr. Agabi storms in.
Do you remember the rich lady from baby camp, the one I kind of had a crush on?
Don't touch him!
Who the fuck are you?
So is he reintegrated yet? No, babe. Notable this episode is that while Audi Irving and Bert are having dinner, this guy, Mr. Drummond, is searching his apartment and he finds the list of severed employees that Audi Bert had made. But he doesn't find the paintings of the downward elevator because it seems that Irving has hidden those, almost as if he expected his house to be searched. This is also unfortunately the last time we see the team for a while because the next 2 episodes do not feature the innies. And the fans are not exactly happy about it, but that does not mean that they are bad episodes. This episode starts with Gemma! We see her in a flashback with Mark, where his hair actually looks pretty good. In modern times, Gemma is in a white facility, which is presumably under the 7th floor. She is asked if she would rather suffocate or drown, and she says drowning, which I hope doesn't become a plot point later in the season. She has to put on a red dress and visit 6 rooms today. Now these rooms, they all share names with the file names that MDR was working on, like Allentown, Sienna and Tomwater and more. She enters a room named Wellington and this is where she becomes her innie.
It's been 6 weeks.
I was just here.
I know.
In a flashback, Gemma and Mark are being really cuddly and kissy and cutesy, and they have a cute little montage of their relationship. And then we find out that Gemma is pregnant. Unfortunately, she loses the baby, so it's really sad. In a different flashback, we see Mrs. Casey talk to Innie Mark, and we get this really cool shot which seems like CGI, but it's actually all real. Take a look. There's a department down there with some freaky people who look and dress exactly as our team members of MDR. What exactly is going on down there? And Cold Harbor sits at 96%, and they say that when it's finished, the exportsman has to say goodbye to Gemma. Is she gonna die? Also, it seems like this department is directly below MDR, but I made a mistake on the map, so just pretend it's below O&D, okay? Back in the past, Gemma and Mark visit a fertility clinic, and the exportsman is here 2 years ago. After that, we get a cute little scene of the two at home, and noteworthy, Mark says that she hates writing thank you notes. Remember that. Back in the future, Gemma is questioned about the rooms that she visited today.
Which room caused your mouth to hurt?
The first one.
Wellington.
They seem to inquire about whether or not she remembers things from the rooms.
You remember nothing?
Nothing.
Gemma says that the only room she hasn't visited yet now is named Cold Harbor. She wonders what happens if she visits this room. Well, the exportsman tells her that she will see the world and the world will see her. So she will finally get to see Mark?
Mark will benefit from the world you're siring.
Siring? Is she a vampire? This is where we learn that this is indeed the Gemma that Mark has come to know and love, and she has all her memories intact. She just wants to go home to Mark after 2 years of being imprisoned. In the past, we see Gemma have the flashcards from season 1.
I don't know. It looks like two guys fighting.
No, it's the same guy fighting himself, defeating his own psyche.
Mark is being a little bit annoying, so they have a small fight. Back in the future, Gemma visits a few more rooms. One that looks like she is in an airplane experiencing turbulence, and she's panicking a little bit. In another room, she has to write thank you notes. And remember, Gemma does not like writing thank you notes. So it seems Lumen is making her experience unpleasant things as her innie that are specific to Gemma. My personal theory is that they are testing the Severance chip to see if they can flip an Audi to an innie to prevent the Audi from experiencing anything unpleasant. And that way, the Audi will never have to experience the 4 tempers. It also looks like every room she visits, she has a separate innie. So apparently, someone can have many innies.
It's always Christmas.
That's the spirit. She wants to go home, but the mystery man tells her that Mark remarried and even has a daughter. Rightfully, Gemma does not believe him and she hits him on the head with a chair. Then she makes a run for it. You go, girl. Get that freedom. She makes it all the way to the elevator, goes up, but then she becomes her innie, Miss Casey. Miss Casey tries to walk out of the black hallway, but then...
Miss Casey.
He sends her right back down. Mr. Milchick, we love you, but don't do that. This is really sad for her because her only exit turns her into an unknowing innie, and Mrs. Casey doesn't know that Gemma wants to escape. Back in the past, we see Gemma and Mark's final interaction, and it's giving feels. Also in this episode, Devon confronts Dr. Agabi, who is being fake and mysterious. Mark looks very sickly, so Devon says that she doesn't like what she is doing and wants to bring Mark to the birthing cabin, where remember, Devon's lady crush became an innie for childbirth. Devon thinks that if she brings Mark there, Mark will become his innie and she can talk to him. Dr. Agabi thinks this idea is stupid and she doesn't believe in it, so Devon threatens to call Harmony Corbell for help.
Okay, I have custody of his brain now. You don't. I'm calling her.
Dr. Agabi runs off because she hates advancing the plot. Mark wakes up and he's reintegrated. Just kidding, still not. This episode was great. We finally get to see Gemma shine. She is played by Deegan Luckman, and if you've seen Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or if you are a The 100 girly, you already liked her before this show. I love seeing actors I know get good and fun roles again. We finally get some information about the file names and the numbers. The numbers we don't quite know yet, but it seems like they are somehow refining what exactly each room should contain. Episode 8 is considered the worst of the season and is also the shortest of the season. Let's see what the writers cooked up for us. Please try to enjoy all episodes equally. The episode starts with Mrs. Cobell driving towards an unknown town. Devon calls her, but she ignores it. She goes into a little diner and she seems to know the barista. Here, 6 minutes into the episode, she finally speaks. This episode is like really slow. She asks the barista for a favor and wants to discuss it at the factory. At the factory, this man, who is named Hampton, tells her that it's messed up that she had him come here. But she asks him to bring her to someone named Sissy.
If they're watching the house, they'll recognize my car.
She needs to get something from this person's house. We learn that Mrs. Cobell and Hampton were old colleagues, or as he puts it, child labor. On the way there, Devon calls again and she ignores it again. We also learned that this man is high right now on some sort of drug.
I do not want that huff peddler on my property.
It looks like this is the house that Mrs. Cobell grew up in. She wants to get something of hers from there and she wants to go to her mother's room, but Sissy doesn't like that and she has a little argument with Sissy.
Why do you bring nothing but woe into my life?
And then Sissy slaps her. We find out that Mrs. Cobell also had a wintertide fellowship, much like Miss Huang, but she had it at a factory where she met James Egan, current CEO of the company. She is looking for the key to her mother's room and she finds it and proudly proclaims,
I found it!
She has a little breakdown in her mother's room and does some drugs. Then Hampton comes in and they do some together. She says he hasn't done this since she was 8. 8? Don't do drugs, kids. Bad. Also, they kiss. Mrs. Cobell finds what she was looking for in the garage and she shows it to Sissy.
Mine! My design! Circuit blueprint, base code, overtime contingency, Glasgow block, all of it!
So she invented the Severance chip, not James Egan. Mrs. Cobell invented it. No wonder that she was so interested in reintegration in season 1, and no wonder she is annoyed that they fired her as if she did nothing for the company. On her way back, Mrs. Cobell gets called by Devon again, and this time she answers.
So listen, Mark has been reintegrating?
And she hasn't killed him yet. Is Mark with you? Tell me everything.
Notable this episode is that Sissy does not go upstairs in her own house, even though she wants these two to leave her house. Maybe she is severed and if she goes upstairs she becomes an innie. Overall, this episode was way too slow. They had some fun reveals and lore, but the pacing just felt like they had the weird Archie thing that they kept doing in The Walking Dead, where they had long shots of nothing happening. I hated it when they did it in that show and I hated it here. It's not a bad episode, it's just not a very good one in my eyes. Also, it seems like Lumen has destroyed the town that Mrs. Cobell grew up in.
Lumen destroyed this town. There was no town before the factory.
In episode 9, Miss Huang's Wintertide Fellowship ends and she is sent to a Norwegian island. But before that happens, Mr. Milchick makes her destroy her favorite toy. I think he's mad at her because she reported him for using too many big words. Gretchen comes clean to Dylan's Audi about kissing his innie and he is mad.
He reminds me of how you used to be.
Okay.
She then visits innie Dylan and tells him that they cannot see each other anymore, so Dylan does this.
Gretchen G.
Oh my god.
I love you.
He gets rejected. Sorry Dylan, you cannot home-wreck your own marriage. Hayley is at work and she wonders why Innie Mark is, so she asks Mr. Milchick.
Why?
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 She then gets a note that Irving left so she can go look for the downward elevator. Audi Irving enters his house and Bert is there waiting for him, sitting ominously in a chair. Bert invites him to go for a drive.
The numbers aren't moving.
The numbers aren't moving.
The numbers aren't moving.
Mark is not at work because he is on a road trip with Devon. They have told Mrs. Cobell everything and she has told them nothing. So they go to drive to Mrs. Cobell to meet her. And when they do, she wants to wait until night to go to the birding cabin. She is also talking very ominously and not giving much information.
We don't even know if he's completed the file yet. Cold Harbor.
Mr. Milchick has a confrontation with Mr. Drummond, who blames him for Mark not being at work today, and then he gets mad at him for using a big word.
Apologize for the word.
I apologize.
Shorter.
I'm sorry.
Again. Again.
Devour feculence.
Devour feculence, Mr. Drummond.
It means eat shit.
He demands respect for being the manager of the severed floor and also correctly points out the severed floor is his only jurisdiction, and if Mark is not at work today, then that is Mr. Drummond's fault. That's right, stick it to the unthankful management, Mr. Milchick. He then has a short but profound conversation with Audi Mark about the work-life balance, and Mr. Milchick is starting to get it. Bert takes Irving to a train station and they have a really touching goodbye. Then Irving and Radar get on a train and leave. Where are you going, Irving? There's still another episode and you still have downward elevator to find. Where are you going? Someone comes up from the downward elevator and it's James Egan, CEO of Lumen. He then goes to Hayley's workstation and goes, "You tricked me!" Mark, Devon and Mrs. Cobell go to the birding cabin and here it's implied that James Egan is still impregnating some of his employees. Yikes. Mark awakens and Devon calms him down because he is in an unfamiliar location. He then sees Mrs. Cobell and the episode ends here. Something fun this episode is that Dylan sits in front of this painting and he matches one of the people in it. We also see the house of the Egans and Jamie is watching Helena eat an egg with a knife. Why? Finale time! This is gonna be a good one. Devon and Mrs. Cobell talk to Mark and ask if he's finished Cold Harbor yet, and he hasn't. So that means Gemma is still alive. James Egan talks to Hayley and tells her that he does not love his daughter Helena because, well, he's a bad father, but also because he doesn't see Keir in her. He does, however, see Keir in Hayley.
You and your family created hell and you're going to burn in it.
Mark is told a plan on how to save Gemma. First, he has to finish Cold Harbor, then he goes down to the testing floor where Audi Mark will take over and Audi Mark will save Gemma, go back up the elevator, Mark will take over and he will take Mrs. Casey to the stairwell and escape. I love this plan, having multiple versions of them escaping on different floors. I can already tell that this finale is going to be a lot of fun.
If we can prove that they fucking kidnapped her,
It will end them.
Well, if Lumen ends, then what happens to every innie on the severed floor? Just to save one person you happen to care about.
But Mark doesn't seem to like this plan because then everyone that he knows and loves will cease to exist. So to try and convince him, Audi Mark leaves him a recording. Mark seems to like seeing his Audi and gives us that classic Adam Scott smile.
Miss Cobell.
Mark leaves a recording for Audi Mark and they keep switching between each other by stepping in and out of a balcony.
Nightmare is the wrong word, actually, because we find ways to make it work.
He just doesn't want the innies to die, which is a reasonable request. So they keep sharing messages between each other.
Is it like a top-bottom situation? Oh, no, it wouldn't be like a top-bottom situation.
Top-bottom situation, you say? This one line is going to spawn some crazy fanfiction.
I mean, you've been alive, what, 20 times longer? It seems like he'd be way more you than me.
I agree with Mark, because if they reintegrate, then it's mostly going to be Audi Mark. And is that fair? Not really. Audi Mark tries to convince him by talking about his love for his wife Gemma and mentions that Mark has a love too.
Miss Cobell told me you like someone down there? Your innie name's Helene?
Helene? Oh Mark, you've messed up now. You're just pissing off your innie not only by getting her name wrong, but also by pretending like their love isn't worth as much as your marriage.
You know what I think? I think the second you get your wife back, you forget I ever existed.
The conversation falls apart and Mrs. Cobell will talk to Mark alone. She says that the numbers are Gemma, and every time he completes a file, that's a new innie for Gemma. So he's completed 24 files already, that's 24 innies. And if you add on to that, the files that the rest of MDR have completed, that's a lot of potential innies. Then Mrs. Cobell upsets him by saying that tomorrow is his last day at Lumen, and so he says this.
You tell him that the next thing I see had better be the severed floor, or I swear he will never see his wife again.
The next thing he knows, he's on the severed floor, so they listen to him. And there's this great painting that depicts all the people that Mark has met throughout his journey. He and Hayley get to MDR and there's a wax statue of Keir Egan there. They decide to tell each other about the latest happenings. They have a really touching convo about wanting to live together. And then they decide, let's finish Cold Harbor and save Gemma. Dylan's resignation request appears denied, so Mr. Milchick takes Dylan to the break room where he can read about why. But Mr. Milchick is not sticking around because he has places to be. Dylan's Audi is jealous of him because he is cool and confident and his Audi is not.
I hope someday she sees in me what she sees in you.
It's a little bit hard to explain to you what happens next, so I'm just going to show you. Enjoy!
Mark, you have drawn my grand agendum nearer to fulfillment. My, you're verbose.
Thank you, Kier.
Choreography and merriment!
Absolutely brilliant! I hope they make Mr. Milchick dance every single season. While this is happening, Hayley takes Mr. Milchick's walkie, takes it into the bathroom and puts it in a toilet. So Mr. Milchick goes and retrieves it and then Hayley locks him into the bathroom. Then while this is happening, Mark makes a run for the downward elevator. Mr. Milchick tries to escape, but Dylan shows up just in time and puts a vending machine in front of the bathroom so he can't get out. Mr. Milchick will spend the rest of the episode in the bathroom. Gemma has to wear the clothes that she had on the day she died in the car crash and this rightfully scares her. Then they take her to the Cold Harbor room where she is confronted by a crib. They want her new innie to take the crib apart and James Egan is watching on a monitor.
Who are you? Take it apart.
The goat lady brings a baby goat named Emil to Mr. Drummond to be sacrificed. Cruel, leave the baby goats alone.
This beast will be entombed with a cherished woman.
Then he gets a gun and tries to make the goat lady shoot Emil.
How many more must I give?
As many as the founder calls.
Luckily, before she can shoot the goat, Mark is outside of the door making a lot of noise trying to get into the black hallway. Mr. Drummond catches him and tries to murder him. It's a very one-sided fight and fun fact, during the scene Adam Scott almost had a concussion. The goat lady saves the day and beats Mr. Drummond.
No more killing.
Mark gets the gun and takes Mr. Drummond into the downward elevator. In the downward elevator, Mark holds the weapon to Mr. Drummond's neck and during the switch to Audi Mark, it accidentally goes off. R.I.P. Mr. Drummond, you will not be missed. Remember back in season 1 when Peli said this?
Okay. What if is it you're murdering people 8 hours a day and you don't even know it?
Well, this is Audi Mark's first time on the 7th floor and from his perspective, Indy Mark just murdered someone. So yeah, Audi Mark's probably a little bit afraid of Indy Mark right now. Slight content warning, some of the following scenes will contain a little bit of blood. Mark enters the testing floor and goes searching for Gemma. He gets to the Cold Harbor room and manages to get inside. He finally sees his wife again after 2 entire years. He talks to her and gains her trust, so she puts her weapon down and goes with him.
It's okay. It's me.
Stop.
Hayley and Dylan try to keep Mr. Milchick in the bathroom and even hit him with an instrument. Mr. Milchick orders the marching band to go back to their apartment, but before they do that, Hayley stands on the table and gives an inspiring speech to try and turn them against Mr. Milchick. We get our Gemma back outside of the Cold Harbor room and they hug. After 2 years down there, she finally gets to see her husband again. She takes Mark to the elevator and they kiss. And during the kiss, they switch back to Innie Mark and Mrs. Casey and it's a little bit awkward. Then Innie Mark takes Mrs. Casey to the staircase. Mr. Milchick finally breaks free and he does a cool little jump. But the dancers and Dylan are revolting. Mrs. Casey walks outside and Gemma is finally free. Innie Mark does not follow her though.
Mark, come on! Come on, Mark!
He doesn't want himself or the other Indies to die, and he also doesn't want to leave Hayley, who conveniently shows up behind him, and he has this little dilemma about whether to go with Gemma or not, and he decides to stay with Hayley, and we get this really cool shot. They run back into the hallway and the season ends here. Amazing. What a good way to end this season. I thoroughly enjoyed this episode. From Innie and Audie and Mark talking to each other to the double-floored escape plan, they just really exceeded my expectations with this finale, and now I'm kind of sad that we have to wait 2 more years to see what happens next. Notable this episode is that Innie Mark tells Mrs. Cobell about Irving's drawings, and she seems surprised and shocked that they knew about the downward elevator.
There's a hallway down there. It's long and black and hidden.
From Irving's drawings.
What?
And did Mrs. Cobell give Audie Mark the wrong name for Hayley on purpose?
You can imagine, like what you and Helene have.
You would have to try really hard to get the name Hayley wrong, so I don't think that this is a mistake on Mark's part. I think that Mrs. Cobell is playing more of her games.
What are you doing here? Really?
Mark.
They also have this entire department of severed dancers that just seem to have been practicing with Mr. Milchick for a while. Ridiculous! What could season 3 bring? It seems to be setting up the Innies taking over the severed floor and fighting for their existence. Now that Innie Mark has saved Gemma, surely Audie Mark will value Innie's Mark life more. I sure hope they don't eat the goats. Personally, I would like to see more of the goats next season, and I would also like to see an Innie revolution. However, I don't think the writers are going to do that. I think they're going to lean more into the mystery and show us new departments and potentially show us a new floor that even Mrs. Cobell doesn't know about. That would be a mystery. If you enjoyed Severance or this video, please leave a like and subscribe. It helps a lot. And as for what's next while we wait 2 years for season 3, I've been eyeing the show Yellow Jackets. Stay tuned.